I think there's so many things throughout the world that people have to be thankful for. There's a lot of things that we want more to be thankful for. But there are a lot of programs that affect a lot of people. And one of them is through the Rotary Foundation. And I have Don Murphy with us tonight. And Don is with Rotary Club. And he has a program that he's involved with. And this is going to be one of those rare moments where you're going to hear me just say nothing, because it's all about the program here, and it's a wheelchair program or other parts of that can help people be more mobile. And great program, and I think it's another thing for Thanksgiving and be thankful. And this is Don Murphy. And Don, thank you for coming tonight. I know you're a busy man and out there doing a lot of things, but I think this program is just an awesome one. So,
well, good. It's good to see you, Gary.
First of all, Don, let me tell them who you are with Rotary. I know you've been with them for a lot of years. You've done a lot of things with them. We meet every Friday morning, and so we have the opportunity to have a cup of coffee and have a meeting. But Don has been, how many years you've been in Rotary?
13.
Okay, that's
I started with the Rotary Club of Salida when we started that club up. I had not been involved before. But they gave me an opportunity to see things that I hadn't seen before, opportunities to help people. And the program that you mentioned is just one of them. As my opportunity formed, I became the president of the Rotary Club. Mm-hmm. And that introduced me to people that were doing things beyond what I had ever heard of. As I moved along with them and became the district governor for 54 Rotary clubs in the Central Valley, I was exposed to yet more people, not only from my immediate area, but from around the world. And one of the projects that I got involved in was with Hope Haven West. And my immediate project with Hope Haven West at the moment is that we're collecting used mobility equipment, as you mentioned. We use looking for wheelchairs and walkers and canes and crutches and things that help people get around, mm-hmm. but also things that they might use, like a bath seat or a shower seat, portable potty chairs that they might not have. And our country is awash in these in used condition. People have a need for them, and then they don't, and they end up in a landfill. And so part of our project is to relieve those from the landfill. There's a significant availability to people in the U.S. for equipment, primarily brand new equipment. But even if they have a need for transitional equipment, something to hold them over while they get their permanent equipment. We have organizations, we have nonprofits, we have social services agencies ready to serve them. So what we do is we take this used equipment and we ship it to Iowa, where the parent group of Hope Haven West, which is called Hope Haven International, is involved in contracting social services for the state. Okay. And they amongst other things, they have a contract with a prison. And in that prison, there are a bunch of men who are going to be there for a long time, but have some exceptional skills and a dedication to their effort. They have a workshop to envy. Mm. And
I'm sorry, where was this workshop?
In Iowa. And they have the equipment and the spare parts to take these wheelchairs that we bring in and refurbish them and make them useful again. Sometimes some of the equipment that we get is a little bit more worn mm-hmm. than we would like to put back out. And so in those cases, they may take a wheelchair and part it out like you would a 55 Chevy. Wow. And then it becomes part of the resources that refurbish other equipment that's donated.
So the program, again, is already, just at this point, really involved in people. Number one, people who are no longer using the piece of equipment, who it's taken space up in their garage, and donated it. So they're helping. They are being a part of it. And now it's going to a prison where, good, bad, or indifferent, I said earlier this wasn't a political evening, but perhaps it is. We got prisoners who are out there working to get equipment good to get out to those who need it.
No matter what you think about how these men and why they got themselves into prison, don't you think it's a good thing that we keep them occupied in something positive while they're in there?
Definitely.
Not only for their own safety, but the safety of the correctional officers. To have them focused is a good thing.
Awesome.
And the product that comes back out of it is useful. And many of these wheelchairs that we see are a few $100s initially, standard folding chairs. But our particular focus in taking them back out and distributing them is on the specialty wheelchairs, the chairs that will tilt in place for people who spend much of their lives in a wheelchair. You can't sit in a chair like this for hours and hours and hours and days on end. You can't sleep in it. And you need to rotate the chair because you can't rotate the people.
Right.
Wow. You rotate the chair to relieve pressure, and
yeah, you know, in Salida I have the country kitchen, and last year, was it April-ish when you did your last drive?
Yeah.
And I don't know, how much. What do you know about what you accumulated out of that drive as far as?
I know that my trailer and other trailers left Salida full more than once.
Yeah.
And the equipment that we got, we consolidated right here in Ceres, California, along with equipment that was collected by Riverbank Rotary, Escalon Rotary, Ceres Rotary, and others. All of the equipment came together into a warehouse here in Ceres that is operated by Hope Haven.
Okay.
And as it accumulates, we get to a tipping point where we can't store anymore. But it's enough for a truckload, and so we'll bring in a 53-foot long truck, fill it from front to back, top to bottom, side to side, and you couldn't get much more than a toothpick in there after we finish. And in addition to the wheelchairs, including electric wheelchairs and manual wheelchairs, the specialty chairs like the tilt in place that I mentioned, other specialty equipment for mobility, it all goes in there, and then we fill in the cracks with crutches and walkers and everything, all to go to be sanitized and refurbished for use in developing nations.
And you know, talking about, just as I said earlier tonight, that this is sort of a Thanksgiving program, and as we just go along through all the stages of doing that, I have the restaurant in Salida, and there was a couple who brought in a motorized one. I was shocked. What do you want me to do? Well, here, Gary, you're collecting them, give them to somebody, because there was, I believe it was a mother, and she had passed and whatever. And I don't know, it was 4 other wheelchairs and some walkers, and they came in and had breakfast and brought in equipment. And I thought, wow, how thankful we are that they gave to us, that we're thankful to help them over there. And it all starts with somebody giving.
And the best time for us to get some of this stuff sometimes is as a memorial. When somebody has passed recently and we have this equipment, and it's going to become a burden to the family to deal with it, to store it, or worse yet, to put it in a landfill. But when they give it to us, we're going to make good use of it in places where it can be used. Our volunteers then, as a separate step, our volunteers go out to developing nations where we've been, where we work with Rotary clubs from those nations, with social services agencies from those nations. And we develop, before we go, we develop a list of people with these specific needs. Now, I've been doing this for years, Gary, and I can't remember too many of the people that I've been able to help who ever had a wheelchair before.
Wow.
This is first wheelchairs. We're seeing children who are in their teens getting their first wheelchair. We also deal with toddlers and you know, elementary school age.
Are you getting, I'm on some assumptions here.
Sure.
If you have a child, I'm assuming the wheelchair has to be smaller.
Right.
So are we getting those type of chairs donated?
Some.
Wow.
And our wheelchairs come from a variety of places, including not only the individual donations, which are the ones that we really have our heart in.
Sure, sure.
But also the commercial ones, rest homes, medical equipment companies, the people who professionally supply new wheelchairs to people often get the old wheelchairs back. And some of those same people travel with us. All of our travelers who go out to deliver wheelchairs are not Rotarians. Probably most of us are. Mm-hmm. But we're accompanied by people with specialty knowledge who can help us be more effective. The people who do fit wheelchairs for a living, occupational therapists, physical therapists.
Because that was my next question, really. Okay, so now we get this wheelchair out of wherever, and out of someone's garage, and they bring it in, and that's wonderful. So now you get them to a central place in series, and now you get a truckload, and you ship it off to
Iowa.
To Iowa.
It's refurbished.
Okay. And
then we buy them back.
Okay.
And we have the opportunity not only to buy back these refurbished ones, but Hope Haven has designed what they call their kids' chair, and it is a very adjustable chair that comes in one design but multiple sizes. And the sizes are particularly different widths and different seat depths. Okay. And as the seat depths become longer, generally the seat back height goes up too. And we can do a lot of adjusting, not only to fit the different size of the child, but also to fit the specific ailment. Now, when you're dealing with wheelchairs, a lot of the wheelchairs that we get are the standard folding wheelchair like you see all the time. And those tend to not be a lot of value to us with children. They are more value to us with adults. Adults grow normally, and then something happens. They have an auto accident. I fitted a man in a wheelchair who had gotten too tipsy and fallen off a stump and hurt himself. They have strokes. They have other debilitating incidents that act on their physical body, but it's an already formed body. It's already normal otherwise. With the children, nearly everyone that we deal with has cerebral palsy and then something else, spina bifida or hydroencephaly or something that further aggravates their condition. And so we have to not only adjust the chair for the size of the child, but for what ails them. An adult may get weak in their hands, but a child may grow up with their hands like that. Recently in Colombia, I was fitting a child, and it was his first wheelchair. He was about 11, and it was not one of the new ones from, not one of the Hope Haven kids' chairs, but a specialty chair that had been donated from some family, came into a group like ours, went to Iowa, got refurbished, and then was part of a shipment. We buy container loads, and we tell Hope Haven what we want in the container. Wow. And then when we land the product, we open it up and see what's there, and then even though we've kind of in advance tried to get the right mix of
so something's going where it needs to be.
But on the spot, we evaluate the child on top of whatever advance information we received. And we then go in and look at a room full of chairs, and we pick out the chair that is best going to fit that child or that adult. And then we bring it back and adjust it to them and their ailment. And so this young boy, I got a chair out that was just going to be perfect for him. And his hands were gnarled. He couldn't really do much with them. And his father wanted to take a hold of the chair and turn it into what we would refer to as an attendant chair. Somebody pushing you along. What we did instead was we encouraged the father to step back And I asked the boy to take his hand and put it on the wheel and push himself forward. Well, it took a little effort. And we and he had to be patient. But then he did this, and he turned himself. And then I prompted him to use the other hand, and he did that. Now, I don't think he moved a foot on his own in the 5 minutes that we went through this exercise. But you could see in his eyes, the gleam in his eyes, the smile on his face, that he understood that he could do this.
Where was he prior to the wheelchair? Was he bedridden? Was he carried?
He was carried. Pretty typical. In developing nations, especially amongst impoverished peoples, the children who are exposed to the public are often carried by their families. Women who are very short carrying teenage boys who are taller than them, dragging them literally with the arms around like this, or the smaller children carrying them like this, or carrying them on their back, any which way they can. We have children come in and adults come in wheelbarrows. We have them come in crawling on their hands and knees because they have the ability to move, but they don't have the ability to stand.
So then there's also the other part now, and this is getting really fascinating to me, of the teaching them. I mean, if you've been carried all your life, you're not going to sit in a wheelchair and just take off and start going.
No, and the thing for this boy is, I don't know what his circumstances were. He might live on a city street, or he might live in a rural area. There might not be any opportunity for him to get out.
Yeah.
But if he learns that he can get from his bedroom to the kitchen table to eat dinner with the family, if he can learn that he can move himself around like that, then perhaps he can learn some additional things. Maybe he could learn to peel the carrots.
Yeah.
Help with making the dinner.
Maybe learn to go outside and enjoy the sunshine.
Sure, sure. There's opportunities for him that the gleam that I saw on his face was just the first inkling of it. Most of the children, I said, have birth defects. Another child I dealt with in Colombia was shot. Her father was assassinated, and she took a bullet to the spine, and it disabled her from her halfway down her back all the way through the rest of her. And but she was a pistol. I couldn't keep track of her because I went and grabbed an appropriate chair and I started adjusting it. And you don't adjust it with them in the chair. You adjust it in the right general direction. Then you put it in and do a little fine tuning. I was adjusting the chair and not paying attention to where she was. Well, her mother was still sitting with me, but she was off visiting with her friends. And when I looked around and said, "Well, where are you?" Yeah. And she came crawling along like this. Just, pulling herself along. She's alive, she's vibrant, and when we put her in a wheelchair, she took off immediately. She knew what to do with it. Some of the children that we deal with are less fortunate. They have been impacted in their brains.
Yeah, sure.
And they're not capable of attending to themselves. They have to have an attendant all the time. But we're able to ease the family's burden. And one of the important things about this, and I hope I don't shock you with this, but in developing nations, when you get out into rural areas and you've got impoverished families and they have many children, and one of the children is born disabled, you asked if they came out or if they were kept in a bed. Well, many of them are kept in a bed. And their families do that out of love for them. Sure. Because if they brought them out into the public area where neighbors were aware that they were there, then the neighbors would be encouraging the family to put the child to death, to avoid taking food out of the mouths of the other children in the family. Yeah, yeah. So these parents come to us And we do the things that we can to help them.
See, this is just so awesome tonight. This is a Thanksgiving show for sure, because as I was thinking, I remember when my sons were young. The oldest one had to wear glasses. I don't know, he was 10 years old or something. And of course, that was a project to keep him wearing his glasses. Then his younger brother developed scoliosis. Nothing serious, but he had to do exercises, and then it would work, and and it was a project. Where's your glasses? Did you do your exercise? And my youngest son, who's a lot like his mother, says to his older brother, don't listen to Dad. We don't got a problem, because if I'm going to be crippled in a wheelchair and you're going to be blind, you can push me and I'll tell you where we're going to go. and
a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah,
I love it.
But at the same time, there's nothing that I can't imagine in my life that I would not do to make sure my kids didn't have a wheelchair or a walker or whatever it took. If I had to get a part-time job in this country, whatever I had to do, and as I'm sure I'm no different than anybody else, but you're going to do what it's going to do. And some of these other parents don't even have the option or the opportunity, other than what you through Rotary and perhaps other organizations and clubs or whatever are doing. To I just can't even imagine being a parent to see your child that you've drug around, as you said, for years, and now they can be human.
They can be independent, and they can, and it can give the parent some thought that maybe this child would outlive them, that maybe this child would be capable of taking care of itself.
Sure.
And so, it's important. We were in Oaxaca, Mexico last summer, but again we were there about I think in 2009. My oldest son and I were on that trip, and most of the children and adults that we dealt with on that trip were impoverished and really needed they couldn't finance it, and but the other thing is the chairs weren't readily available anyway.
Yeah, see,
one of the parents that I dealt with, as you're working, you work with somebody assisting you, handing you wrenches and stuff like that, and so I got this dad involved, and because he was obviously very sharp. We didn't speak the same language, but he was very sharp. He understood. I could show him things, and he could learn, because that gave him the value of being able to adjust the chair. And later I got a translator who helped us have a little chat, and he acknowledged that he could afford to buy a chair. He came there to buy a chair. We ended up giving it to him because that's what we were doing.
Right.
But he could afford to buy a chair. There just simply weren't any chairs available.
So even to do that, that was even...
Yeah, so there are a number of groups, and I've actually worked with several of them, and most of the groups that are doing what we're doing, we're a relatively local group, mostly from Stockton or Lodi down to maybe Merced.
Okay.
And when we travel at our own expense. We raise money to purchase the wheelchairs from Hope Haven. We pay more for the brand new chairs than for the refurbished ones, but we pay for both, and then we pay for shipping, and we do that we raise some money as seed money, and then we apply for grants to fill out the balance. Costs $35,000 or so to send a container with 200 wheelchairs. Part of the advantage of what's going on with not only the need but the willingness to work with this is that we've introduced other groups that are similar to ours to the access for the Hope Haven wheelchairs. So they're buying their wheelchairs, and now one of the fellows from Hope Haven in Iowa developed about 5 or 6 years ago, developed a manufacturing plant in Guatemala that makes the brand new children's chair.
Wow.
and they're now gearing up to do 2,000 new chairs a year. And if that sounds like a lot, I'll tell you, the community that we just left, we went in with 200 chairs and they needed over 1,000. And that's true nearly every time we show up in a community.
So there's some people you're telling, no, we can't help you? Bless you. I can imagine doing that.
I suppose you're right.
Yeah.
But we're not doing that one-on-one.
I understand that, but I mean, in your heart, you know that.
Yeah, there are people in front of us who are filtering through the cases that we can best deal with. Yeah. There's another group called the Wheelchair Foundation that does a lot of the standard folding chairs, and they do huge volumes. And they are. It was probably 2 years ago that I received a picture of somebody receiving the 850,000th chair, and we're just not in that ballpark. They do a lot of volume. They're not custom fitting, but without them, we wouldn't be any value at all. It'd be too small a drop in the bucket.
At the same time, if you gave one, and I say kid, but a person, it could be an adult too, but we're all very passionate about children, but you can get one children in the world that have a wheelchair, to be able to have that opportunity would be more than rewarding, is to have none. So doing 800,000 is wonderful, but to doing that one boy, I mean, how awesome that is. So the numbers are great, but the accomplishment that we're doing is greater. I have three that maybe you can help me with. Number one, to help get the word out here, through us, through Rotary, people can call and join Rotary. How? If a person at their own local Rotaries, because we're seen out through Sacramento and Livermore. So how would a person get in touch with a Rotary club to find out about joining?
Probably the easiest way to find a Rotary club in your community is to go to Rotary.org.
Okay.
www.rotary.org, and right on the page that you land on, there's a link for a club finder. Okay. And you go to the club finder, it's a little form, and you fill in what state or what country or what city you're in, and it comes up with a list. So if you put in Modesto, it would show you 5 different Rotary clubs.
Okay.
If you put in Salida, we'd come up with just our one.
So, and Rotary, we'll do a little picture for Rotary before we wrap up, because it's just an outstanding organization. Just one thing that they do in the mass that they do as international. But in our local club, I know that the education is a really, really big, important part of that we do. In fact, every 6th grader, every year?
Every third grader gets a dictionary.
Yeah.
And that's a project that nearly every Rotary club in our 54 are doing in their communities. And we've been doing it in enough communities now that there's virtually nobody graduating from high school anymore that hasn't received one at some point. And often we give them to their teachers as well. We are great supporters of literacy, but we also not only looking at elementary school and literacy in elementary school in order to develop a student body that can stay in school and be successful, but we also work with scholarships to help the successful ones go on and be yet more successful and provide us with the professionals that our community will need to lead us in the future. They're doing a lot of good things. While people are thinking about, that wheelchair that they have, that walker, what else we could use? We have other projects like, I've been collecting hearing aids for probably 10 years, and glasses. When you have somebody in a developing nation, again, because we don't have the need for used equipment here, we send the used equipment to developing nations. But when you take an old lady who's going to where her vision is no longer where she can do her knitting or her crocheting,
if someone's seeing this tonight, can they call like us locally, and then we can send them the right way.
Sure.
So let's give them a number or.
So should we use yours?
Oh. And we can. If I think it's going to get some young man or woman or kid that's not being carried around a wheelchair, you can let my phone ring, and we can do that. Here is my cell phone number. It's 209-247-7242. If you have any type of equipment, glasses, hearing aids, whatever you can do to help someone who has no accessible to that, what an awesome thing that we can do to do that. So my number is 209-247-7242. I'll have to turn it down so my wife doesn't hear, and I hope it rings off the hook. I really do. And I will surely turn it over to Dawn at some point and get it to where it needs to go. And what a wonderful Thanksgiving to give somebody the ability to walk. I mean, you know.
I have another number that we can give them for the mobility equipment.
Okay.
And that would be 209-538-1496. Okay. Now that number is for Davis Guest Home. And Davis Guest Home is run by Lonnie Davis, who's the president of the Ceres Rotary Club.
Oh, okay.
And Lonnie is also the guy who invented Hope Haven West.
Wow.
He's the one who started us, and he's been the heart and soul of all of these wheelchair projects that we've done in so many places. I've been on, I don't know, 10 or 11, and there have been many more than that I missed because I can't do them all.
And you know, I guess the other thing that I would assume you would need here too, and if you're a therapist or somebody or whatever that can get out and get some time off and to be able to go with you guys to go down there to help teach. I know my mother, when she was in a wheelchair, just pushing her was an art. Yeah. I mean, a couple times we went downhill and I had to catch her. But can you imagine if you just there's just so many avenues that we're needing help. So,
and those professional folks also teach those of us who are wheelchair mechanics to be better wheelchair mechanics. We welcome having them along. We often have not only people who are professionally in that role, but we also bring students along. People in their last year of doctorate programs at the University of the Pacific have traveled with us on a number of occasions, and they're invaluable to us, but we're invaluable to them too, because this some of the first practical experience that they get outside of a textbook when we put real kids in their hands and real adults and with real problems.
Well, Don, I am so thankful that you're doing what you do personally. I'm thankful that I know you. I'm thankful to be part of Rotary and that's a part of this and doing whatever they can. And I just hope out there that we've reached a heart to somebody. And even if you can't help, but just to know that there is help. Someone's helping somebody. And, you know, we can get all wrapped up in the world and the political part of the world and president and not president or whatever we want. But you know what? We're a good nation and we're doing a lot of great things, and the world's full of good people all over. And I'm thankful for that. And I would like I said tonight, just to take this show and let us be thankful for around the world, for those that are helping in any way, in any shape, that they're doing a lot of things. And there's a lot of great clubs, organizations, schools, things out there that are just doing exactly what you're doing. And I know you and your wife, Donna, do this wholeheartedly and are really into it. And I'm just glad you had the time at such a short notice to get here tonight, so you can share the story. So
thank you for the opportunity to share these stories with the folks who are watching, because it's our biggest challenge. Moving wheelchairs around is relatively simple. Finding the people who have them and want to give them to us is a little bit more difficult.
And I guarantee you someone has one in their garage, because Grandma...
Call your local Rotary Club.
Call and
give them my name and they'll find me.
Right. Well, you know what? Thank you for being with us tonight. I believe Athens will be back next week and continue doing what she does so well with... At the show here, and I thank you for allowing me to come in to you tonight and being part of the program. I enjoyed it. I hope to come back someday soon. Maybe she'll go in another, wherever she is tonight, and enjoying herself, I hope, and keeping everything on watch. And remember that there's people in this world watching out for you. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.